She has to have good taste in men to be attracted to me.
Inside of the Saints. Loading.
You know, it is not just a case of physical attraction. I admire her mind, too.
What's good, everybody? This is your host, DeJounte.
And your co-host, Stephen Goat.
And you are watching episode 11 of Inside of the Saints. Can we get a round of applause? See, we back with another episode, man. Steve, tell me, how's life been treating you, man? How you been feeling lately?
I'm good. I've been running around.
Mm-hmm.
This is my new uniform.
Okay.
For my next occupation.
New job.
That's right.
Okay. What you starting? Tell the guys what you starting. What you venturing off into?
It's been a humbling journey of having 10 years of work experience, a decade in the specialized field of contracting work for others, and now, by the grace of God, I'm now a owner of a firm, a contracting firm.
See, he's behind the scenes working, man. See, he told you about time this come out, he would have quit a job, but see, he started something new. See, he always working, so that's what I love about him, man. He always working, always staying, busy with his head above board. But as we get into our shout outs, we always got to make sure we shout out God first, always, because he's the reason why this is even happening. Next, we shout out our pastor for allowing us to use his studio to record and using his just using his space. We always want to thank him because without him helping aid this vision, this would not be possible. So we say thank you. And if you're ever in the Walker Lake, if you're ever in the Mansfield area, please check out Walker Lake Baptist. The address will be in the description. Also, shout out all of our supporters. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, coming up to us, telling us how much you love our content. It really, truly lights our day and makes us, very motivated to post more. So we just want to say that we thank you and we love you. And, let's get back to the episode. Now, for my life been pretty cool. Just, I don't know. I'm at like a weird phase in life where it's like I'm doing what I want to do, but there's so many things that's just like, I feel like that's just in the way. So it's just so stressful right now, but I'm working on it. I'm giving it all to God and just allowing God to direct my path because I don't know. I just been like in my head just recently, but it's getting better. I'm just continuing working, man. Just continuing working because, I got a vision. Of course, Inside City Saints, and I'm just trying to, bring it to just bring it to life. Just keep being obedient to what God has put on my heart to do. Also, I don't think I explained last week what the new segment is or our new segment. So when we do the what have you learned lately, I forgot to explain what that even is. That's a way for you to get to know us a little bit more and also get to know that we still struggle just like you do. Like, I'll talk about this once I get into my next once we get into the what have I learned lately segment. But I just wanted you guys to know that the people that you see behind the camera aren't perfect. We aren't better than you. We still struggle like you do. We still have our own things in our lives weaknesses that we go to God with daily. Things that we're trying to get better at. So we do this little segment just so you guys can understand the man behind the camera. So that you know that we are not that different from you. We just been called to come to you, in our weakness, in Christ's strength, to give you knowledge that you may or may not know. But to get into our segment, what have you learned lately? Steve, tell us, what have you learned lately?
A lot. So I've been bombarding his phone this week.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. He has been bombarding my phone. I will not lie. I probably got like 80 text messages.
So let's just begin with that. What I've learned.
Okay, let's begin.
So, mainly out of all of the messages I sent you, the one that caught my eye the most was a revelation of. Actually, what opened my eyes the most was this. I was meditating on this song for 8 years. And
continue.
And I've been dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking about dreams, Jonte, I did not go over this with him.
You know what? You get canceled. That's on you.
So
I told you this once before. I'm all for the clip. Go ahead.
So the dream was the fact that ever if I ever hit this state that's really euphoric, the fact is that I know I've gotten it when I can I truly comprehend that God is within the vision and within my soul, and He's the one that I know what it means now to have that love of God within me. Speaking of which, after that revelation, one day later, which is today, I wrote a poem this morning.
Oh, you did? Wait, did you send it to me or not?
Yeah, the enraptured one.
Okay.
This one was profound. And if it gets published, now you know where it came from.
Facts.
This day. All right, I'm going to read it. It's going to be called Enraptured. Pillars of dreams stand majestically, an atmosphere naturally surreal. This fixed sensation is sheer fantasy, yea, a fancy with more layers to peel. Desirable sweetness, immeasurable, an image extraordinarily pleasant. All eyes deem this favorable, wherewith all essence remains present.
Okay.
So what I got at
I think that's the. I don't know. Wait, hold on. Is that the one that I liked and said like that was probably the best one you sent?
No, the other one was the Broken Patterns.
Oh yeah, Broken Patterns. Okay.
But this one was Enraptured. But I've been enraptured lately.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about it. What do you mean you've been enraptured?
I love dreams. I love sleeping. But as I live every day, hanging out with my brothers and individuals that are in my life, not only in my life, but also serving others as well in their own journey. And my crush, who I'm not going to say.
So you gotta.
I got a huge.
I didn't know you was that bold. I didn't know you was bold. Usually you be trying to hide it. He coming out saying, "I got a crush. I like Shorty. What's good?" If you watching this, my man said it was good. How you doing? Can he? You work?
That's
can he
right.
Take you out on a nice little?
Hey,
you know what I mean?
Can't hide those clips
Get
anymore.
together. You take you on a nice little get together. A nice little coffee shop. Get to know you.
That's right.
You shooting this shot, bro. Hey, I respect it. You know what? I respect it. I gotta dap you. Okay, I respect it. Real is real. Game is game. But continue.
All right. So being enraptured in this whole situation is that now I truly understand what, like you've always said, live in the present moment. That word was the finale of that whole poem, and therefore, I came to realization that I can live like this every day.
Facts.
So future publishers, sponsor me. I'll be happy to give you some royalties.
Hey, you heard what he said. He'd be happy to give you some royalties. Now for me, mine's gonna be a little bit long because I done learned a lot.
That's great.
So first, one of the things I learned is I wanted to reword this thing that I said back in the previous podcast, probably in our first 1, 2, or 3 episodes. I don't remember. But I remember I said something along the lines of how Paul would address not the sin in the church, but he would address the issue, or not like when he would address the person, he wouldn't address them by sin, but he would address their issue. And I think I said something along the lines of he would say fornicator, things like that. I meant to say he would say their issue is like if they were struggling with something, he wouldn't call them a sinner because that's no longer their identity. He would say, hey, you're fornicating, but here's a solution. Like there's a distinction between, because sometimes it's not a distinction, but there's like a big I wouldn't say uproar, but there's a chapter in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians, that's tossed up in the air trying to figure out who he's talking to. Because when you read 1 Corinthians 5, it seems like he's talking to a believer, but he's actually talking to unbelievers. He's talking to someone who doesn't believe at all, or to someone who says that they believe, but you can tell that they don't. How do we know that? Because in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, it talks about his flesh may be that he's given to the Satan for the destruction of his flesh, so that in the day of salvation, his spirit might be saved. Something along those lines. Well, if his spirit is supposed to be saved in the day of salvation, that means that
5.
Yeah, to deliver such a one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Well, here's the thing. If that's the case, if he wasn't already saved, that shows you he's an unbeliever. So he's saying that this person particularly is an unbeliever. That's why he decided to, get him out of church, stuff like that. That's why he was dealt with him that way. But then when we go to 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and 7, we see that he calls these particular people not brothers, but he says saints. So he addresses them according to their status in Christ. And when he addressed them, he told them to avoid fornication. Now, he never called them a fornicator, but he addressed the fact that there was an issue in the church, which was fornication. And when he told them the issue and told them to avoid it, he even gave them ways to do it. He told them to, he told them to have your own husband or wife. Or if you are unmarried or a widow, if you can't control yourself, then go marry. So he gave you actual solutions, not condemnation. And that's what I wanted to allude to in when I said that was when we're in the church, instead of condemning people for issues that they struggle with, because there's no condemnation in Christ, which is talked about in Romans, we should be correcting because there is correction in Christ. Christ corrected. Paul corrected. All the people of God corrected. And that's okay to correct because correction comes from a place of love, but it's about knowing how to correct. I'm not going to, because this is the thing. If I address your issue, but then I don't give you anything after, that's condemnation. Because I can't call you out, but then give you nothing there to stand on and actually get better from. That's basically condemning you.
That is true.
Because if I just come to you and say, man, you just keep fornicating, man, you ain't, like that ain't Christian you. That's condemning you. I didn't correct you. I just came and pointed out your flaw. Well, you can do the same thing to me. But if I came to you and said, hey man, I see that you've been struggling with fornication. Have you looked into maybe getting a wife? Because fornicating really ain't beneficial for you. I think a wife would be more beneficial. You could get more out of that. That's correcting you because now I'm giving you a healthy doctrine to go about your life in a way that's better than you were before. I said this in the last episode, but we don't do better because we are better. We do better because we know better. Because if we were better, then we would have did better. So therefore, there would be no need for Christ. But it's obviously that we're not better. So we have to teach people the better things that we should do so that they can do them. Not because we're going to make them righteous, but because we want to see them live a better life. Because it's the thing. Our righteousness is in Christ. Walking in a righteous life means that I take on Christ's life, and no matter what I do, no matter what predicament I'm in, whether I'm weak or whether I'm strong, I'm going to be righteous regardless. So to the point that I was alluding to when I said that back then was that we as Christians got to carry the love of Christ, which is correction and not condemnation, which means if you meet another brother or sister in Christ and they're struggling and you want to point out that issue, make sure you come with some information that can help guide them away from what you feel they're struggling with. Because condemning them for it isn't going to help any much more than it would you correcting them. So correct, don't condemn.
Or ask them.
Or don't say nothing at all.
Exactly. What I was gonna say is you can ask them a question and you can solve it together.
Yeah, maybe you can ask them a question, solve it together, or if you don't have something to say, just address them by their proper identity, which is saint or follower of Christ. Don't lessen their position because of weakness. Because one of the things that I learned recently is about spiritual maturity. Is like we're all spiritual mature and immature at the same time. Because there's certain areas where I'm spiritually more mature than other people, and there are certain areas where they're more spiritually mature than me. Because they may have knowledge on how to control their temper, but I don't. And I may have knowledge on how to control my lust, but they don't. So we're both spiritually mature and immature at the same time. We just have to know our weaknesses, our strengths, because we may be able to help each other.
That's right.
But if I'm so busy trying to condemn for what I see, then there's no help.
And there's no not only that, but you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere.
It's a waste of time. It's a waste of breath.
Yeah, it's a waste of breath. It's a waste of time, and it's not what Christ preached, and it causes division because now that person feels excluded or doesn't want to come to you, and you put yourself at a higher position because now you've exalted yourself to make you feel like, well, what's so different about you? You don't do the same things I do, just in different forms. Because last time I checked, disobedience is disobedience. A transgression is a transgression. That's right. A sin is a sin. So that's what I had learned. And the next thing I will talk about is humility. And the reason why I want to talk about what I learned about humility is because it kind of ties into this. One of the things I learned about humility was we have a misrepresented interpretation of what we think humility is. We think humility is when we put ourselves lower to put somebody else higher. And that's not humility. Humility is not you lowering yourself. Humility is you staying where God's positioning you and exalting Him, or staying where you're at and helping somebody get up, whether that's higher than you or whether it's at the same position, but you're not moving yourself. Because if I can move myself lower, that's me telling myself that I'm in control of where I'm positioned. Well, guess what? That's false humility. Because now I'm making myself lower just to put somebody higher. That's not humility at all. Because if I was humble, then I would know that I'm supposed to be here because of the fact that God's placed me here. So I don't have to feel less than just to make somebody feel better. Then if I'm putting myself above people, well, now I've hired myself to make them feel like I'm above them. I'm above no man. No man is above me. So it's like when you start thinking about humility in that perspective of allowing God to position you, you start to understand that you are positioned so that you can exalt Him, and by exalting Him, He will exalt you.
That's correct. Yeah.
So when we keep this position of humbleness, it's not about us lowering or moving ourselves. It's about allowing God to move us and us thanking Him. And I know it talks about, He'll make the high man low. Well, think about it. That man was already high. He'll make the low man high. That man was already low. These people are already in these positions, but He is doing the moving. The problem is when we start to do the moving, thinking that we can position ourselves because we know what's better. That's when humility starts to kind of
Right.
get out of play.
And that's somewhat of submission towards submission. Our hearts are submitted
To God.
to God.
Yeah, it talks about that where when you have your heart submitted unto God, you humble yourself under Him.
That's right.
Because submission is a part of. I believe that submission is a part of humbleness.
It is.
When you submit yourself under somebody, you humble yourself. Then when you're submitted under them, you allow them to position you, and you exalt them for where they positioned you. And then on top of that, I put it like, if I was to start positioning myself, I would start doing it based off of certain factors that don't or align with God. Like when someone makes me feel less than and I put myself lower, or I feel like if I don't do this, or if I feel like I put myself in a lower position that can make me look better, now I'm doing it for someone else's approval. So now I'm doing this so that other people can approve of me, which means that God's word no longer matters in my life, theirs does. Or if I start putting myself higher, now it's how I think of myself in terms of me putting myself of something. Exactly. Now that's pride, because God never called me there, but I called myself there, looking at other people and finding flaws in them, saying I'm better. That's pride, because that's not equal. So it's like at that point, when you start doing things on your own without the counsel of God, it becomes prideful. So that's what I would say I learned about humility. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is because in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to position yourself to receive blessings from God. And this is so important to me because I feel like we think that positioning ourselves to receive blessings from God has to do with putting ourselves in a certain place or putting ourselves in a certain area or putting ourselves around certain people.
That's correct.
But it's actually about positioning your heart. And I want to show you that. But I'll let you interject. Sure.
So, yes, and this is a great topic in regards to positioning. That there's going to be a lot of times where where I see at times where people do question where their purpose is, or where they should be, and where their mind should be at, and that can be daunting to anybody. Where again we don't know what to be positioned, and this is the whole church. In church, they have this whole segment called finding their identity in Christ. And in this day and age, people don't know. Even you can literally show them a slideshow of what it means to be identified with Christ, and they still can't. And go home and still realize, why don't I feel this way? But in reality, we are called to be. I understand what obedience means now in my current position where I am learning, and God is showing me to be still. And I guess that's what I want to say right now. Being still is one of the best ways for me to know what position I am in my walk.
Okay. I like that, being still. Because I would say a part of stillness is being observant. And when you're still in God, you're observing to see where like He's moving you. So you don't overstep. It's a lot of patience involved with that. So before we get into this topic, what do you think? Like, how do you think? Okay, so what do you think in terms of when someone's positioning their heart in God? What do you think that looks like to receive a blessing? Because I'm gonna go to the Bible and show them what it looks like, but I want to see your thoughts. Like, what do you think?
So, when to receive a blessing is ultimately, I don't expect a blessing. I know it is one of the greatest rewards that we ought to do is to serve.
Mm-hmm.
So when we serve others, uh, God is that's an attribute that God instilled in us to be a light and to do, and therefore that is what I how I view somebody who is willing to be positioned in a, like all these action movies and superhero movies is
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. So the more responsibilities you have, it is a position where you're entrusted to do um, greater works for His kingdom.
Okay.
And I believe it applies in the things that are spiritual as well.
Okay. So this is what I wanted to get into. So I use the Bible because it's already open. We're gonna go to Genesis chapter 39. Now, we're gonna go to Genesis chapter 39 is we're gonna talk about a man named Joseph. Now, Joseph's life was kind of crazy work. Going to jail for something you ain't do, that's wild. So if you read chapter 39, I'm not gonna read all of it, but we get to a point where Joseph was brought in a captive, he moved his way up. Now he's in a good position in the palace. He's under Potiphar's husband. Yeah, he's under Potiphar.
Yeah.
He's under Potiphar. Now Potiphar's wife think that he kind of cute, so she come up to him on this type, "I like you" type vibe, and he like, "Whoa, that's my master, baby." I'm not like I know I'm handsome, I know I'm chocolate, I understand. I get it, but I can't do this because this is against my God, and already this is against my morals. She's like, morals. Oh, you want to talk about morals? Then he end up in jail. But I want to talk about this particular verse that like well, I'm talking about a couple of particular verses, but it's this one verse that I'm looking for. Hold on. Okay, but it says, so we're gonna go to Genesis chapter 39, verse 12. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of his keeper of prison. So this is chapter 39, verse 21. And I brought that up because we see that the Lord was with Joseph, but it was because Joseph was with him. When the devil first came to tempt him and to get him away from God by using that woman, he stayed with God. He said, "Nah, I ain't gonna do that because I understand that this is against my Father. This is against my Lord." So because he stayed with God, God stayed with him. Because see, it's the thing: God only leaves you where you leave Him. When you start going away from God, He's gonna be right where you left Him. So we see that the Lord was with Joseph because Joseph was with Him. So his heart was already positioned. So as his heart was positioned with God, we start to see that God started to keep him in a place that was meant to make him without. He in prison. He ain't supposed to have no favor. Having favor in prison is like a fairy tale. But we see that says the keeper of the prison. This is in verse 23. It says the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord make it to prosper. So the verse before, the keeper on everybody, basically like that's like the guard. So the guard, he on everybody behind. Every time they do something, he own that. He taking that. They look commissaries, all that. He like, give me that. It's over with. Joseph got his little stuff. He paid no mind. That's because God is on his side. But I want you to think about something. In this whole time he's being prosecuted, in this whole time that he's being persecuted, in this whole time he's in prison, he never once made it seem like it was God's fault. Now, a lot of us, if we're in this situation, we are already blaming God. So you telling me I've been doing what I'm supposed to do? She came to me. I ain't even crack shorty. I ain't even decide to get up. I ain't even decide to do it. And you gonna let me go to jail? Out of all the things, like you gonna let me go to jail? Me. I just came from a pit. Do I get a break? Right? But when you think like that, you position your heart outside of God because number one, you know that God works everything in favor of those who love the Lord.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So you have to keep that into perspective.
And a thankful heart.
Yeah, of course, a thankful heart. You have to keep that into perspective. Then you have to keep into perspective that things are going to happen. Like, sometimes things happen. You can't control it. You can't. Some things are going to happen. You can't blame God for everything. Some things are just going to happen, and you have to believe in God in order to get out of those situations and know that He has a plan for you. But also, when you allow these things to cloud your judgment, you can miss opportunities that God can use to help you elevate out of the place that you feel condemned in. So, and I want to talk about that because we see that we see that in chapter 40 that these chief bakers and the chief butler had been cast in prison, right? So they cast in prison, they in prison with Joseph. Now Joseph sees this when he wakes up in the morning. And he go to them because they looking a little bit sad. You know, they think about it, they just went from in the palace and now in prison. So of course they sad. So he go up to them, he like, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all look a little down. All right? Mm-hmm. They like, man, we just got kicked out. We in prison and we just got these dreams and it just don't sit right. He like, whoa, my God is a teller of dreams. So I pray that you tell me so I can interpret for you. So he interprets both of these guys' dreams, but because of his heart posturing in God, he was able to spot an opportunity because his mind wasn't clouded. And the opportunity was that the guy who was going to live from the dream that he interpreted, he told him, hey, when you go back, I pray that I ask you to remember me so that you can maybe talk to Pharaoh to help get me out because I've done nothing wrong. I'm not supposed to be here. Now, many may say, well, why is he asking for opportunity? He did what was right. See, he didn't have to pray and ask God because he already knew that if this opportunity was granted for me and if this was right here for me and I'm going to go get it, I ain't gotta ask. God got me. He said he wouldn't have allowed this to even happen if he ain't see that if this was an opportunity. Sometimes we be so afraid to take opportunities that God has given us to elevate. So, but he wasn't afraid. He said, you know what? What's worth the shot? So he planted a seed. So as he planted this seed, 2 years later it starts to sprout because Pharaoh gets a dream. And then the person that he gave, and then the person that he helped was like, hey man, I know this guy in prison. He a young man, cool dude. You may remember when you put him in there or not, but that's neither none of the matter. He actually told my dream. So he may be able to help you. So a seed that he planted because he was looking for opportunities because his mind wasn't clouded with how he got in here, but how God was going to get him out. He was able to plant a seed that 2 years later turned into actual fruit that he could feed off of, which was getting out.
I have a revelation from that, what you just said. The funny thing is that in the beginning of the whole story too, everybody that gift of interpretation of dreams was that it came natural to him because he was also like me. I'm a dreamer myself.
Mm-hmm.
Can't say I interpret, I just dream. But the fact is that people called him out that was a horrible thing that he has done, especially since that dream became it became a manifestation of their whole land bowing down to him for
his brothers.
His brothers and his parents and so forth. But one thing too is just that see how many of the gifts of the blessings that we know, it sounds arrogant to the world, but we know that God has blessed us with that, and the fact that we can do it effortlessly is surely the blessing that we take for granted.
Okay. See, I never thought. Okay.
But
Steve, all right. All right.
Yeah. So that's one thing I've what you just explained it all is that he always had it with him. This
he
ability.
Always had it.
And the fact is that it's only appreciated at the right time.
Exactly. We're going to get to that. So I want also the people to understand this. When this seed was planted 2 years before Pharaoh needed him, God was preserving him. He was wanted for nothing. So while the seed was planted, he was taken care of. And while the seed wasn't planted, he was still taken care of because when he first got to prison, God was still taking care of him. So because he was always with God, he was always taken care of. And when the seed sprouted into a blessing that he could feed off of, that just that just showed his obedience in like in his heart posture. But he was only able to receive because of where his heart was. But then this is also the thing was he had to be patient because when he asked, it was no need for him in the palace. Because if he would have went up there when he wanted to, he would have went right back down because Pharaoh didn't need him.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment that Pharaoh needed him and brought him up, that's when he became of service. That's when the blessing actually started to manifest. So we got to understand that sometimes in our lives, God doesn't move us to certain places at that moment because we're not needed there. We'll be more of a blessing when we're needed than when we're not. So it's like, I believe it's like a two-way exchange of a blessing.
It is.
Like he got it, like Pharaoh got blessed, and then they also got blessed. And then like he also got blessed. But he had to not only be in the right heart position, but he had to trust God. Because you gotta think, he's being accused for something he did not do. We all get in our moments, especially when we know we ain't did nothing wrong, where it's all about us. So we start thinking, why am I here? Why am I this? Why am I that? We start clouding our mind. And his mind was never clouded.
I have something to add too because I went to the yes, I'm going back to the army, but the fact is that's another story. But I've met another exactly what you said. The fact is that we're going to be in situations. This is something that position actually just opened up my eyes, man. You're right about blessing. Let me just sit up straight so I can explain this.
Okay. See, you can sign up. Hold on. Go ahead then.
So that's a great revelation. The fact is that you can be in the trenches or you can be alone.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, there's always that one soul that's always going to be in the vicinity. And God knows that a soul, and it says in the Bible, 2 or 3 that are present in my name, I am there. So the truth is revealed. So I don't. That's what it means to be a saint. Is for a fact that we are now going to be a salt in the light. So if you put me out on the streets, homeless, there's people out there. If you put me in the trenches, there's still going to be individuals that will have to pass her by, and every opportunity as I now got this like just exactly what just sparked the light bulb just talking about this, but every moment when a saint, even in the New Testament and the parables, there's always another soul that's in that vicinity that's like, oh, this is a light
Yeah.
that is overwhelming. I must tell somebody about it.
Yeah.
So we do make an impact.
Not only do we make an impact, but I remember, I think I said this in a couple of previous episodes back, is that being servitude is God's greatest gift to the world because it always keeps you needed, and because we're under God, we're called to serve, and because we're called to serve others, we'll always be a necessity. He's in the palace. I mean, he's in the prison. But because his heart was positioned in God, he looked to serve. And that's what brought him out of the situation. He didn't sit self wallowing, trying to figure out why am I here? I shouldn't be here.
That gets you nowhere. Yeah.
But he actually looked for opportunities to say, you know what? What can I do of God that can get me out of here? And he found something. And God gave him an opportunity and he took it. But I harp on being positioned because positioning helps you see. It wasn't about his body, it was about his mind. His mind may have been in captivity. I mean, his body may have been in captivity, but his mind was free. So because his mind was free, he was thinking like a free man and not a bound man.
I know what it means to be
so
free.
He was sitting there, he was thinking like, man, I know God got me. I just need opportunity. And we maybe had that mindset thinking that I know God has me. I'm just waiting on my opportunity for God to show up in my life or for God to give me that chance to use what he's put inside of me to get me out of my situation. We would be more not only hopeful and not only optimistic, but we would actually find that opportunity because you don't know how close you really are to it. He didn't know that one day servants from up there would come down here and bring him up there. He never knew that. But he was prepared. He was ready. He was looking. He was observant because he was always positioned in God, knowing that, you know what? God got this. So it's always about staying in that mindset. And if you can stay in that mindset, I promise you, you'll always be in position to receive a blessing.
DeJounte and I look like we move a lot. We talk a lot, but we're usually in a still position. And we have a lot of our opportunities up ahead. And one thing I want to add, DeJounte, is that I've been meditating exactly on that, and all the vocabulary words and all that stuff is actually used appropriately. And I've been seeing this in my life wherever I've learned how to be a better listener. And what does that entail? That entails understanding the individual's intentions when they use their words. As Americans love to use undertones and lie to lie, and and but their body language says it all. So what I mean, where I'm going to carry this, this this um, well, I mean, I'm going to just switch the topic to the fact that Joseph, he saw how their body language was. These people was like, they don't belong here. But wait a second, this
he
is
was
the
able to read body
exactly.
language. Fact.
So I'm just saying, there's more to it.
Yeah.
And and not only that, but in the beginning of it all, Joseph was always he knew what kind of brothers he had. He knew that his father loved him dearly,
True.
and he himself embodied like what it means to be a servant.
Also, one thing I noticed is that you see he was very observant with who he talked to because he understood that I only go where I'm needed. See, a lot of times we don't go where we're needed and we're expecting results as if we were needed. So we're expecting people to treat us as if we were a necessity, even though we never was. People are only going to treat you as good as when they need you. So be in places where you're needed. Because if you look at why he was treated this way, that was because he was needed there.
But this world says the opposite. It says that those people are going to use you.
Well, what is it for if it's not supposed to be used? I mean, I put it like this: I can only. This is the thing, right? You can only use me when I let you. If I came willingly, giving you what you needed, did you use me or did I give you what you needed?
That's right. You're giving what you needed. The
Exactly,
latter.
because I understood that I was going here for the purpose of giving you what you need. Using me only comes into play when I allow you to use more than I expected I needed to get, or that I felt like I needed to give.
Exactly.
Or I let you take advantage of me and take from me things that wasn't even meant for you. That's when it becomes using. But in this way, he didn't get used.
It was basically it's like a way. It's a mutual agreement within everything.
Yeah, it's a mutual agreement. If somebody feels like they're getting used when there was no agreement
in the
prior
yep.
that this is how something would go on. But if I'm coming to you knowing that there's a necessity here and I'm coming to provide a service, you can't use me.
That's what I needed to mention, because our audience would probably have that individual. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm taking advantage, which is true. There's a lot of
you can be taken advantage of, but the question is, have you allowed it?
Okay.
Like, was there a a preset understanding that this was what's going to go on, and someone decided to take advantage? But if there was never any
strings attached
or preset, type of agreement,
it's a conspiracy or whatever.
If there was never any preset agreement, then I don't, you can't. I'll put it like this: people want to do what you allow. If you never told them that this is all they could have, of course they're going to take more. You never told them they couldn't. But when you come in saying this is what I'm giving, and then I'm gone, then that's not using you. Even if they didn't give, even if you didn't get anything back, you were a service. He didn't get anything back for 2 years. He didn't care because he knew he provided a service.
Mm-hmm. And he was skilled
luckily, that service paid off because somebody was like, "Hey, I know a guy." But it's like when you just go around serving, you go around serving people when you can serve or in places where you need it. It's not about what you get or give back. It's about knowing that by going somewhere where I'm needed, people will always come back. It was like Daniel. They always came back to Daniel because they needed him. Even when they wanted to cast him off, even when they didn't want to use him. Since he was the only person that could provide the job, he got the job.
He fit the role as a expert, yes, of the job.
He got the job. So it's like, I feel like God really only puts you in places that you're needed, because when you're not needed, you get misused. Because see, when people don't need you, they misuse you, they mistreat you. Because
that's right.
I realize that people only take care of things that they need. If they don't need it, they're gonna throw away with it. They're gonna do whatever they want with it, give it away, mistreat it, because to them it holds no value. you being able to be where you're needed gives you value because people start to see the value in you. So because you're so valuable, they hold you with care. So I see a lot of times we struggle with being in places that hold us with care because maybe we're not in a place that we're meant to provide something. And when you realize that you're not in a place where you're meant to provide something, you got to leave because you'll just end up getting mistreated. Because trust me, if you're in a place where you're meant to provide something, God will show you the opportunity, or God will show you the people you
and
need to
there will be
service.
many individuals. No joke. There's a lot of opportunities that has happened these past 2 months. I can't even list them all because that's a lot.
True. Yeah, I I can agree.
And I know for a fact there's more coming. And
Yeah,
there's
of course.
and I'm ready to be at service. But in conclusion, the one I want to just mention was that uh, observing what we already have. That's what I've been doing lately.
Nice.
Um, however, what we've been doing, what we have acquired, this whole skill set that I have for a decade already, I've already had it since I had that mindset already since the beginning,
Mm.
since I was 16 and a half and when I did everything. And I said, now I'm numb to everything, still the same way, but it's easy. What I mean by numb to is that nothing ever changed. I had no fear. Like there was a fear factor, but it was never a fear factor to run away. It was always a challenge that I've always, by the grace of God, I'm still alive to tell you right now that I satisfied every single role I did. So I believe that's the miracle. But what's what I mean by stay still and identify what um, we are acquainted with to do, and everything that we do, anything that we do for the Lord will ultimately be a blessing in itself because it's enjoyable. I
True.
enjoy doing this.
Yeah. Also, allow God to show you where you're needed because He only knew where He was needed because He knew what was in Him. That's why He asked what was going on because He needed to identify the situation and see could He be of service. So before you just go places saying I'm needed, truly identify by the Spirit and by God, are you truly needed there? Because that's what He did before He even gave His gift. Sometimes we'll be given our gift and we ain't even did no type of pre-work to see is our gift even needed here. So make sure you do the work before to see and fill out are you needed. So as we get to that, I mean, I think that that's a great way to sum up. I think this is a part one of how to receive blessings. I'm gonna do it in parts, but this is definitely a part one. I'll definitely say this is a part one. I don't know when part two will be, so please don't ask. I do not know. Whenever God tells me, hey, part two is when we do part two. But this is part one. So part one, to sum it up, I mean, position your heart in a manner to where you where you get in situations and you don't think about how maybe this is God forsaking you or disciplining you or making you go through some ringer or test. Think about, you know what? I'm going to position my heart in God and trust to know that there's a way out of this or there's a way to advance myself from this. I just have to be willing to trust Him to use me and be able to do it.
I have one
So,
I have one last thing. Sorry,
go ahead.
One thing too is also, I know, man. I'm a couple of years older than.
Couple, you're like 30.
Anyways, the situation is that I've learned that the best thing to do, especially in this society, is to learn how to um, identify your um, identify a time where you can express yourself in your gifts. I know at times people have a gift and they always think that, well, I'm not needed here, so what's the point? Okay, well, first of all, express that to somebody because somebody will most likely
Yeah,
have an will love to have your service all the time.
true. And that's actually biblical. It's funny you say that because they didn't know he was a dream teller until he said something about it.
That's right.
If
And
he would have never said something,
it
they
would
would have
have
never knew.
you just would have stayed in there the whole time
Yeah,
because that's one thing I've started to do, and that's when I said opportunity started rising because I've been expressing myself and saying I used to gripe a lot, so I like writing a lot, and I told this to Cameron. Cameron, you're watching this. I know you are. I told him. I told him, I said, I'm never gonna work corporate again. I'll kill myself, if I do. And he said, well, what is the gift that you have? I said, writing, but it doesn't pay anything, and no one wants to pay a writer the amount that I'm getting paid right now as a
Not yet.
not yet. However, I told Cameron this. I said, well, first of all, my literature is at its PhD level English, so obviously your average child is not it's going to be wondering and be amazed by how complex it is. However, our current um, our current generation will soon appreciate it. However, it's not the time, but I'm still writing and I'm not stopping. So that's exactly where I've came to realization, which I just said, is that it's a gift that I have, but I was griping the
Hmm.
whole time. I was fretting that the fact that it's like, no, this is not going to work. This is stupid. No man gets paid being a writer. Then I had a revelation. I said, okay, I know exactly what I have to do,
Hmm.
and I'll be publishing soon. But just
See,
have to say that.
but put it like that, like it's like you have to position yourself back into God rather than thinking of yourself, thinking like, man, nobody wants to hear this, nobody wants to write this, and God's like, how would you know? You've never met anybody yet who values it. You never put it out to see if people can value it. So it's like you can't say something based off your limited sight when if you would position yourself in me, you'll be able to see that there are people who need it and I can get it to them. You just gotta trust that I can. So it's more so that same way with Joseph. But like I say, the blessings that you want to receive come from how you position your heart. And I feel like that's what I wanted to talk about today was always make sure your heart is positioned in a way to receive. Never put yourself in a place where your mind is so clouded by your thoughts of the situation, how it may look or how it may seem, that you never can see the opportunity that God wants to use to bring you out of it. Because the opportunity comes with the clearness of mind. So when you can see with a clear mind places that you can serve instead of being so busy on what you can't do or what you're not allowed to do or what you can't do anymore, and you'll be surprised how far God can take you.
It's true. He never takes away. Um, he never take he take of course things that are hindering, but I mean takes away what has already been given to you as a blessing.
True. So, as we get to the end, what's the question of the day, man? Let us, give us some, what we got.
I got plenty. All right.
Let's try. No, good.
So I wrote this poem about greed.
Okay.
So if so, so this is the question actually. This poem turned to a question. How's there? So a lot of individuals don't know don't know that they are uh, that their form of gratitude can be um, mis can misplace gratitude into greed, and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that happen many times where individuals, it's like that two face. It's so scary. It's like I'm so grateful for quote unquote finances or opportunities uh, opportunities for finances and so forth, or more, or it can be also in regards to an image, a self image, social media, all that stuff. When does it get to the point? Because I'm seeing this right now, it's making me cringe. Okay,
Okay.
you would get these. If I can reenact this, I would. But that'll be probably have a skit. And I just revealed one of our plans because I do plan on making skits
Hey,
for Insights of the Saints, and
that's in the near future.
that's that's it. And one thing is it's just so. This is one of the biggest pet peeves I have recently. People be posting these especially these men, somewhat, they're getting more effeminate nowadays in the Christian culture, but the women, so they would be posting, I'm so grateful God gave me a great day, and then that kind of stuff, that kind of pictures and stuff like that. and I'm very just in disgust. I don't know, all emotions can't even express it. But the fact is that many people would say that they're giving God the glory, yet they have an ulterior motive,
Hmm.
and which I think wholeheartedly can be it's an abomination because it's like it's unbalanced of the fact that they are getting their attention, but they are also um, using God as a marketing tool for whatever self um, uh, again that self um, help me with this.
I'm thinking. I'm thinking. 'Cause it's like, I mean, I don't know, because I don't think there's nothing wrong with like posting about what God does and what God does in your life, no matter who you are, boy or girl. I mean, if God does something great in your life, I mean, I think it should be shared. That's how people know that God is real. Because if we just kept all our blessings to ourselves and just thank God in private, how would people know in public that He's able to do these things? But I think that there is a fine line between, boasting. I mean, because they talked about boasting the Lord, but there's a fine line between when you're trying to boast of you by using the Lord, and when you're
I've
boasting,
seen that. That's what I'm.
and
That's
when
what
you're
I'm.
boasting,
That's where I'm at right now.
and when you're
That's
boasting
the
of the Lord and what He's done for you. I think I think
there
there's a
is
line.
okay. Thank you. That's just one. That's the way I would like to express it.
So I think there is a line, and I think that line, can come in how you're presenting it. Are you presenting you in it, or are you presenting Him in it? So I think it's all
And
in
these
form of the
photos,
presentations.
a lot of a lot of skin. I don't know if God is involved with that, but that's a lot. That's what I mean. It's. I just wondered because that takes a lot of work to do those filters, to do the to do the um to do the caption, and the caption is actually very basic. It's "Thank God" or something like that, and then but 10 I don't know how many. Now I think it's like 20 photos. You can, if you have a business account, you can do
I
20
don't know.
photos on Instagram,
I
but
don't take
of that
photos.
same individual in different poses. So you tell
What's
me.
wrong with the poses? Like, what they be doing? Elaborate. I mean, this ain't for kids.
They
You could be
got
grown.
they got an imagination. Everything that's inappropriate there. I'll just say it like that.
And
And
they be,
God is involved.
they be trying to show their assets and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of
But I don't think that has nothing to do with like greed and like gratitude. I think that's something.
what I'm trying to say is that
I get what you're saying.
they do
Like,
get a
there's a mission.
revenue. They do
Like,
get a revenue out of views and stuff like that too. They have their own.
yeah, I mean, they get revenue, but people ain't making money like that off of posting some pictures.
I'm just telling you that they're not. But what is the ulterior motive
I
to
mean, but I don't
gain?
think that has.
You can get money from
But I
that
don't
too.
think it's about the money. Like when people
I'm
post
not talking about
pictures,
that. I'm talking about that self
like
elevation.
self validation.
Yeah, validation. That no, that public. Yeah,
That
that
would be self validation.
validation. Yes.
And I
Now
mean, yes, that can come from posting stuff like that. But I mean, it's different facets because it depends why they're posting. Because you got some people who they are a Christian and they have workout channels, so they post their body to show their figures. You have other
there's
people,
not a workout channel. This is just
but then they
this
have
is
other people where they do it because they need to feel whole. So they post certain things to get certain reactions because when they feel low, they need something to make them feel high again. And for those people out there who do that, I feel bad for them. And I don't feel bad because of like, you know, condemnation or like they're going to hell or anything, but I feel bad because only if they knew that the love that Christ
that's
had for
right.
them and the love that Christ wants for them, that they don't have to do that. That they can find more fulfillment in presenting their heart than having to present their body in a manner that will get clicks and likes and make them feel like they're desirable. Because you're desirable as long as you have a good character and a good heart
Amen.
to the right people. And if people are desiring you for the wrong reasons, then they're not people you should be associated with. They're not people you should be paying attention to because you want people that desire you for the things of you that are like Christ. You want people to desire you for the things that can help build up somebody, not for the things that can just help pleasure somebody. So that's what I would say about that. I mean,
That's all I have. Yeah.
other than that, it was a pretty good ender. So we
Sweet.
just want to say that this is the conclusion of episode 11. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. Please tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend. And we love you. We thank you. Please support. And we'll see you guys next time.